so the cook is already, I told him how many gallons of water to put in the soup.
Will there be bacon?
There will be some. For the recruiting event, it's going to be, everything will have bacon in it. But now, we'll have some things that where if you don't want bacon, you might don't have without bacon. Okay, so, listen up, as our brother
Moves it quick now.
puts it in high gear.
Let me see where we are, and we'll move it, okay? We're behind. Way behind, okay? Let's talk about, we're talking about launching a partnership with laity. Oh, yeah, come, Bob, quickly. Give away 2 more books. I'm going to just move through this pretty quickly, okay? So we can get where we want to go. Stan's got some books out there. They're $5. We don't take credit cards. We take cash or checks, make them out to Toller. I brought 2 or 3 of my wife's books. She's written about 8 of them. We don't get them as cheap as Stan does. We have to go through Nazarene Publishing House, and hers are $15. That's still at a discount. But her book, Simply Praying, is being used everywhere. Bible studies, churches, boards. Simply Rejoicing was there. But she's also written a couple of books that are testimony of what's going on. Any of you got people come to the fire? Anybody in the church going to come to the fire? She writes edits a new book each year about testimonies from people who've been there. I will just throw this in real quick. I was just at campus of Olivet because we have a dream of doing the same thing for men. Like come to the fire. And Olivet's a natural place to do it because it's got the missionary church, it's got 3CU nearby, it's got the Wesleyan Church headquarters, it's got Salvation Army. And so that's one of the dreams we have, and we hope to do it the 3rd week of November in 2018. That's all. Okay, let's look very quickly. Launching a partnership with the laity. I said it starts with your board, but you know as well as I know that all believers are called to minister. You and I are called the prophetic role, but actually the word minister ought to be used for the laity. When you look at the Greek word, laity, they're called to minister. And I contend and I believe every believer is gifted by God in unique and specific ways. Everybody has them. And I think we have to realize our people are gifted that way. One of the most significant roles of the pastor is equipping the laity for ministry. And I think he has to work with his board, he has to work with his Sunday school teachers, he has to work with his congregation, and help them to understand that they are equipped. Usually about 20% of the people are what you will work with. And that 20% are the people that you have to equip and you have to work with, and they will become those who will help you train other people. But that 20% is a good figure and a good round figure for you to have and to know there. The church is the church gathered on Sunday morning. When I came out of my polling place where I voted Tuesday morning, I saw a sign right there as I came out of the exit leading out onto MacArthur Boulevard. It simply said, "You are now entering the mission field." Big old sign, and that's it. We are the church gathered on Sunday morning, but the minute we walk out, we are the church that's entering the mission field. But we have not impressed that upon our laity. Now, you've gathered together. Now it's time to go out and be the church in the world. It's time to go out and be the church in the mission field. We are a mission field. And they're missionaries on their jobs, they're missionaries in the school, they're missionaries everywhere they go. We need to have our laity understand that. Ministry serving, it's love in action. If people in your church are doing something because they just say, well, I have to do it, I don't really want to do it, then they shouldn't be doing it. You've got to love it. For instance, if a Sunday school teacher doesn't love teaching the class, he or she shouldn't be teaching the class. One of the ways I've found very effective about recruiting workers is not getting up on Sunday morning and saying, we need children's workers. You're not going to get children's workers. Hello? What I found out is to go to a lady that you look at, and maybe she's got gifts and graces. You know, I have a group of sixth grade girls who just love to fall in love with you. Would you like to fall in love with them? See what you did? Just changed the whole tenor of the conversation. And the best way to actually recruit people is one-on-one talking to them. And love in action, that's ministry. And we have to put love in action completely all the time. The church will not fully accomplish its mission in the world until laypersons are encouraged to find and fulfill their ministry. That's the truth. Years ago, I went to Denver First Church when it was booming. I was just a young pastor. And when I walked in, one of the things that they talked to me about was, this is my ministry. This is my ministry. Every layperson I met in that church, that's when W.D. Wellman was there, this is my ministry. This is my ministry. We've got to get our laymen understanding that they're called to ministry, but we've got to train them in ministry so that they'll keep saying, this is my ministry. This is what God's called me to. This is what I've been equipped to do. My church has helped me. This is my ministry. I'm going faster than I'd like to go, but why build a ministry team? The simple reason they can help you. They can take the load off your shoulders. I have to refer back to Grove City. I was there in an economic downturn. GM had laid people, everybody laid people off. I mean, it was a bad scene. And so money was tight, so we could only have one staff member. And so you've got a church running 500. On the big days, it's running 700 or 800. And one day it hit me. I had 7 surgeries across the city of Columbus, virtually at the same time. Well, how in the world can one man do that? I can't. So God began to speak to me, and I began to talk to a man by the name of Roger Howard. I said, Roger, I can't do this. I'm going to kill myself. I said, I had 7 surgeries this morning. So I went to this one and prayed and stayed a little while. By the time the day's over, I'm totally exhausted. And, you really don't feel like you're giving the time they deserve, the time they need. So we devised a plan of what we call lay pastors. We divided the whole church up into congregations. We had 32 lay pastors. They were trained in some counseling, although you have to have a disclaimer there because you don't want to get in a lawsuit. They were trained in all kinds of ways to work with people. And then on a Sunday morning, I commissioned 32 lay pastors after about an 8-week training program. So I could pick up the phone and say to one of my lay pastors, I want to come call with you for 30 minutes for an hour on Sunday morning, or half a day on Saturday. Will you set it up? He would set it up, or she would set it up. I would go in the car, and we'd call on them. But it helped me because they were ministers to actually be more effective and to do a better job. Well, otherwise, I was going to burn out very quickly, and I was going to end up a mess because there's no way I could keep it up. So you build a ministry team because it's shared vision and values. It's biblical, and it's more effective. If you can reproduce yourself, you're going to get a lot more results than you doing it by yourself. So I believe the job of a pastor is to reproduce himself through the laity and the training of the laity. Now I'm probably rushing so fast we're going to get out of here early. My ministry profile, what is the purpose of my ministry? Why am I doing it? What's my personality? Have you had a personality inventory? The best one is the one used by Florence Littauer. You've been through that? Choleric, sanguine, melancholy, phlegmatic. You had that little deal? That's very simple. I think every board ought to have that so that you know what you're dealing with. It's a simple little test. Any of you have given that test? Seen it? Pretty simple. It's very simple. You can go to all the big ones, but they cost you money. You want to do that. Very simple. And then you understand the personality of your board. You understand your personality. My personality is I'm a 50-50 sanguine choleric. I'm very task-oriented, but I can be kind of fun, too. And so you understand your personality, and then you're able to work with people. You understand your board's personality. You're able to understand them. And it's a very easy thing to do. Passion. What is your passion? As a pastor, what is your passion? Of course, preaching is usually a passion, but what else is your passion? What are your plans? What do you really plan to see happen? What plans are you writing down? What plans are you trying to fulfill? What plans are you trying to make effective? If you don't plan, nothing's going to happen. And if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you already have, which is a big fat zero. Plan, plan, plan. And work your plan as a pastor. One of the biggest things we have to deal with in the ministry is time wasters. My iPhone is a time waster. My iPad is a time waster. Now, I know it's supposed to help me, but right now, my iPhone's on the blink. It's not helping anybody. I can't get some things working on it. But time wasters. And then we have to understand that not everything that comes to us is urgent. I don't have to answer every email. Some phone calls I can put off for a while. And the tyranny of the urgent becomes something that can dominate and control the clergy. Don't let it. Spiritual gifts inventory. How many of you have been through a spiritual gifts inventory? I think most of us have. I want to have a little contention here, or contend. I think that some gifts are not given for all times. For instance, I hate to have a layman say to me, I don't have the gift of evangelism. Everybody's an evangelist. We can talk about that later. You have to have a heart for ministry. I don't want anybody doing ministry in my congregation that doesn't have a heart for it. And then your ability also has to fit your giftedness. And then you have to realize what your personality is, what it isn't. And then you also have to look at the experience that you have or don't have. Now, I'm going too fast for you. A ministry action team. This can be a lot of things. I just told you about the one in Grove City. You can do a lot of things with a ministry action team. They're very important. I think they're very efficient and very good. You have to decide on what ministries you want to launch an action team on. Not every ministry in the church needs a ministry action team, but some do need ministry action teams. For instance, I think in children's ministries you need a ministry action team. A group of people come together, love children, and they work together and they formulate what's going to happen in children's ministry and they take action in it. I think this ministry team has to be formed, and then I think for this team you have to create vision and purpose, and then you have to establish accountability lines. One of the weaknesses of the church is we've not established good accountability lines, and we've not held people accountable. One of the reasons we have them is because they're volunteers and they can quit. We don't want them to quit because we don't fill their position. But if they're not held accountable and they're not doing what they need to do, let them quit. God will provide somebody else to come in and fulfill that. Hello? You just have to let people quit sometimes. I got to tell a war story. Not from me. I got a call Monday from a friend of mine, pastor in Sheffield, Alabama. I've worked with him, mentored him. And he said, I got a problem. I said, oh, what's new? He said, my minister of music's 75 years old. And he said he's just atrocious. But his dad pastored that church, the ministry, for years. I mean, just years. And they have this huge big pulpit that they don't use now, but it's off in the side room. They dedicated to this guy. He said, now, we had a city council race, and some of the church people were not going to vote for him, and he got all upset. So he just told me he's going to resign as minister of music. And I'll be glad. But then he said to me, well, I don't know who you'll get. And he said, well, that's okay. He said, we have this guy who's here as an intern from Tribeca who's a good musician. He can do the job. Another guy that attends college over here who's a great musician. He can do the job. So don't worry, we'll be okay. Well, instead of having me write it down, the resignation, he didn't write it down, didn't get it written. And so then the guy comes back a week later and says, well, I think I want to keep the job. He said, what should I do? I said, well, you've got a bit of a dilemma. I said, first of all, there were not some accountability lines that probably should have been established at the beginning when you went in there. Secondly, the thing I would do is I would call a board meeting. I would go into executive session. You ever been in an executive session at a board meeting? I think college boards go into executive sessions. Well, when you go into executive session, it's legally binding, but you do not take notes unless it is something that's legal. Now, a secretary can keep notes for you so that you can go back and refer to it if somebody questions your judgment. So I said, go into executive session. I said, first of all, do you have your board behind you? Yeah, they're behind me. So make sure they are. But I said, in the executive session, go and get consensus as if they think it's time to replace this guy. And I said, then you need to pray about it and fast about it for 2 weeks. I'm big on praying about these decisions. Pray and fast about it for 2 weeks. Then come back together. And if it is, make the decision. And then come out. You have to come out of executive session. You have to vote to go in, vote to come out. I said, then come back to your board and then just say, now this is what we decided. This is where we're going to go. How do you feel about it? If they're on board with you, then make the decision. Just tell them the board has talked about it. And we feel like maybe we need to let you step aside since that's what you wanted to do. But I said, the day he leaves, the 31st day of December, on the next Sunday, you have a celebration for this guy like he's never seen. You give him all kinds of gift cards. You do everything you can. You celebrate this guy and make it a big deal. And I said, then if he tries to come back on you, he said, well, look, we supported him. We did this. He said, I think we'll just give him that big pulpit. I said, don't do that. You've got a problem. Develop realistic goals. Empower and release. Affirm and recognize. Let me talk to you about goals. So many of our goals are quantitative. Oh, folks, we're going to gain 25 in church this year. We're going to gain them. Oh, good, Pastor, gain them. We're going to increase our giving by $50,000. Oh, good, Pastor. Goals should always be stated qualitatively. For instance, it is our goal to increase our giving by 8% this year. Underneath it, you write how you're going to do it. Number one, we're going to do it this way. We're going to have a stewardship emphasis. Number two, we're going to teach stewardship lessons in every Sunday school class for 4 weeks. Number three, we're even going to teach our children about stewardship. Number four, we're going to keep a weekly report as to where we stand and where we're doing in our giving, so that you actually give a written statement, not only of your goal, but how you're going to accomplish your goal. You with me? But just to get up and say this is our goal is not going to do anything. But when you put the written statement and put the qualitative thing into it, then you're able to articulate how you're going to get there. Okay, so we want to increase our attendance by 25. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to meet with each teacher and ask them to take a goal of increasing their attendance by 1. We've got 15 classes. That would give us 30. We're going to go out and recruit. Here's how we're going to recruit. We're going to use these. So you begin to put it into qualitative things, and then you've outlined in the written statement how you're going to reach your goals. But just to get up and say, this is our goal, go for it, preacher. It's your baby. Get that goal. Great. We're behind you. And that's where they'll stay behind you. Does that make sense? And the reason I can say that to you, you'll be surprised how many times I got up at the end of the year starting a new church here and gave all these big lofty goals. It never happened. Why? I didn't make them qualitative and give them a measurable way so that people could understand where we're going. Still with me? Stand up a minute and stretch. I've got to have rotator cuff surgery, and I have a muscle back here that's killing me. So I've taken some Tylenol. Stand up real quick and stretch. They say that both of them are torn, so they say there's a couple of muscles here that it impacts and affects. Really, when I walk or something gets painful, so I've been going on today, so I'm getting painful. I may be a pain to you too, but that's okay. Okay, sit down just a minute. Affirm, recognize. The greatest thing you can do is recognize people when they do something great in the church. When a ministry action team does something, affirm them, recognize them. Give them a certificate, bring them up front. Streamline the structure. So often we get tied up in the structure, that the structure determines what we do and who we are. Streamline that structure. Make it something that's streamlined that you can move with and work with. It's flexible, but streamline the structure. I hate to rush like this, but I got to get another guy up here in a minute. What time you come on, Doug? What time? 4:45? Why am I rushing for this? I thought it said 4:25. Don't ask me what I'm doing. Maybe I'm wrong. Holy cow. Okay. I'll slow down. Okay, I knew something was right. In your book, you notice that little serving God and people with excellence. You got that little chart? Should be there. Take a peek at it real quickly. Yeah, let me get I've got a whole different set of notes here from Stanton's office. 15, yeah. Let me look at that. I've worked with Stan enough to know that when he gets behind, he just flips through that PowerPoint, so I wasn't as far behind as I went. Begins to now start moving into the ships. He's used these ships very effectively, and they're ships that I like. You notice that Christ is the head of the church. There's the lead pastor or the pastor. There's the staff, the ministry vision team. Many of you don't have staffs, but you can have a ministry vision team. There's partnership, friendship, discipleship, worship, stewardship, converts educated and equipped. It's a good little flow chart, good way to look at things, and a good way to do ministry. It's very important. Did I cut that off? What did I do, Kurt? Punch the wrong button? I'm innocent. Okay, good. Take a look at that and just, it's a good little chart, good way to do it. Well, let's talk about something that's very important. The second ship we're going to talk about is friendship. This is where we move into the area of evangelism. Moving on up here. I like what Tom Johnson says. Instead of arguing for Christianity, try to live it and see how many fish you can catch. I think that's very important. Evangelism is a process of communication. I used to go to Quick Stop, my place, African-American people there, and I got to know them real well. They found out I was a clergy member, and I actually bought one little girl her baby's first Bible. One day I walked in, three of these African-American people there in the store that worked, they started singing, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." But just basically meeting people where they are and communicating with them. Just getting to know them and trying to relate in some way to them. If you go in and just grab them by the collar and say, "I want to give you the 4 spiritual laws," and shake them, you won't get very far. But it's a process of building a relationship and communicating. I am convinced that building a relationship with sinners is one of the best things in the world you can do. Hello? I love being with sinners. I think Jesus did too, didn't he? I love being with sinners. I love going to dinner with sinners. I know you probably think I'm crazy, but I know they don't do what I do or think like I think. My next door neighbor behind me, his name was Don. Still is Don. We moved in, and he built a house there. He's in his 30s, and man, he played this music. I mean, it just vibrated day and night. I mean, it shook me. And so I wrote a letter and did a bunch of stuff to the people, called the authorities about it, all kinds of stuff, because it just rocked my house. We couldn't even go to bed at night. And Patsy said, "Why don't you just pray for him?" It's Patsy, you pray about everything. So I just for 3 years I fumed. And then one evening about 5 o'clock, it was so bad that we couldn't understand it. And it's a nice neighborhood. So I said, "I'm going to go over there." My son said, "Dad, you be very careful. He may shoot you." I said, "Well, at least I'm dying for Jesus, I think." So I went over and met this guy. And I said, "I don't want to be a pain to you." But I said, "Man, my house is shaking." And my neighbor next door said she thought it was my house that was doing it. I said, No, I don't play that kind of music. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, can you imagine listening to that at midnight? 2 o'clock in the morning? And one time, it was going so bad, I went out and there was this big party on the lawn. And I mean, there were people hold the lawn. But anyhow, I said, I don't want to be mean, but this is really bad. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And we began to talk a little bit. And then I saw him at Quick Stop. I said, hey, how you doing? I told him I want to take him to breakfast. He said, I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. I said, let's go to breakfast. Went to breakfast, found out his history, been in and out of drug rehab. His mom had bought his house. His dad was a wealthy doctor. Alcohol. Talked to me about some of the issues that he had. He came to church. We just became friends. I performed the wedding. He married a girl from India. Her name was Prashante. I performed their wedding. But the greatest thing that happened to me was I went over one day to see him, and a guy came in to buy medical equipment because that's what he sold. He said to that man, he said, this is the man who takes me to God. It's about relationships. Now, I don't know if Don will ever understand being a Christian like I understand it, but I think he's seen something that's different. He no longer smokes. He no longer plays the loud music. And there used to be, he had a beer dispenser in his garage where he could go in and get it with a cup. I'm telling you, this guy, and you used to see the recycle come by and there would be piles of beer cans. You don't see that anymore. You know, I'm sure he's not on the same page I am. I'm sure that he's really still out in the spiritual wilderness. But I do believe if you share with people where you are, that eventually evangelism produces spiritual life. But it also meets needs. What's going on? Now, I didn't get to the ABC with him, but what's going on? He had a need. He had a need. It was amazing. I was in a car wash recently, and I saw a guy sitting there, and he just seemed so confused. And I said to him, is there something wrong? He said, yeah, my wife has just told me she's going to divorce me. And I don't want a divorce. So I just said, let's talk. We talked. I found out that he had a history in the Church of the Nazarene. Invited him to come back to his faith and back to the family. But they're out there. They're all over the place. And they need Jesus Christ. And it meets needs. But the good thing about it is, when we talk to them, we're sharing good news, man. This is not bad news. This is good news. You can say to them, you know, I've got some good news for you, and in a world that's bad news, I'd like to tell you about this good news. Do you know about Jesus Christ? Let me tell you how I heard about him. Let me tell you what he did for me. It's only effective, though, when a person enters a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Isn't it marvelous to see somebody with tears streaming down their face praying a sinner's prayer? The greatest joy in the world is to see someone pray a sinner's prayer. The greatest thrill in the world is to see someone pray the sinner's prayer. There's nothing like it. I don't understand why people don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. It really bothers me because, man, this is the only way to live. Only way to live. But they don't. Prayer evangelism. What do you think I mean when I talk about prayer evangelism? Have any idea? What? Yeah, really start praying for somebody. Zero in by name and pray for them. So that prayer becomes a tool of evangelism. What was it Wesley said? That God doesn't do anything except in answer to prayer? We limit what God can do when we don't pray. Needs evangelism, that people have needs all around us, everywhere. They have needs. The apartment complex we lived in Dallas, a little gal's named Shelby. She gave me my apartment and all. And she'd just been out of this ugly relationship. And so I'm getting bolder. I found out she moved in with another guy. Beautiful girl. I said, Shelby, do you have any guilt? Feel guilty about it? Well, no. I said, are you sure? Maybe a little bit. I was blunt. I said, you know, you're such a beautiful girl. You're so pretty. I'm going to pray for you, but I'm also going to pray that you be miserable. She just smiled. But I had built up a relationship. When you build up a relationship, She has a need. She needs Jesus. I have found that needs relationship can really work well at hospitals, funerals. Really work well. Our 21-year-old grandniece was found dead Tuesday week ago. Circumstances don't look real good. I couldn't go. Patsy flew down. It's Patsy's sister's son. Just a real sad situation. But I want to tell you something. I honor that pastor. You know what he did? He gave an altar call, the funeral of that 21-year-old, and the altar was lined. He didn't go out and scare the hell out of them. Pardon my expression. I don't mean that in a vulgar way. But he presented the gospel. Told them that God loved them. Patsy said, Curtis, it's just amazing. He said, if you've got a need of any kind, if you'd like to know Jesus, and the altar was lined. What's wrong with that? What an opportunity. You're not trying to coerce them. You're trying to bring Jesus to them. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit might be speaking. Because the young people, all of us, we tend to push it off. It's not going to happen to us. But it does happen. It will happen. Needs evangelism. Finding the unchurched. This is about marketing. Demographics and geodemographics. Who are our neighbors? Psychographics. What's on their minds? We need data. Where can they be reached? And personal data. What are their interests? Evaluation, creativity. In northern Michigan, the emotional quotient is very low up there. Only 5% of the people in northern Michigan attend church on Sunday morning. So the EQ is very low. So you work with a whole different group of people. And I didn't realize that until I began to do some of these studies, which are very important. But then you have to ask the question, who are our neighbors? In your neighborhood, who are your neighbors? Of course, out here it's a little different, but the city it's a little bit different. Who are our neighbors? Who's around the corner? We just had something very shocking happen in our neighborhood. There's a doctor that lives across the street, and his daughter, we just found it, is a lesbian. Well, the other day, I'm out in the yard, and suddenly these two gals come out, and they're hugging each other walking down our street. Well, I'm glad my granddaughter wasn't there. My grandkids weren't there. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I reach out to these people? Our Vietnamese neighbors are just appalled and shocked. And it was very, very open, very vulgar. I mean, it was not just something. It was very, very awful. But they need Jesus. I don't want the lifestyle. I don't agree with it, but they need Jesus. And don't let them tell you that people cannot come out of this lifestyle, because I know they can. I know people who have. I know they've been healed. I know they've been delivered. And also, don't let them tell you that they were born that way. My son did a study. Kevin's a doctor, CEO of the president. He did a study and found out that most people who have turned to this kind of lifestyle have been sexually abused. And so, as John White says, it's eros defiled. And so, in the stimulation of all this stuff, guess what happens? They move toward that as vulgar and as awful as it is. But there can be redemption. And I think it's time the church doesn't hold up signs and it's not ugly. The church simply says, you know what? We love you. We want to help you. We'll help you. And some of them that I've met and known are the most miserable people I've ever seen in my life. They need Jesus. They really need Jesus. And but understand where you are. Any of you pastor in a big city? Okay. Yeah. If you pastor in a big city, there's all kinds of studies that you can get online that shows you everything that's happening, all the demographics. And if you get those, they're usually free, and you can kind of know where to target your areas. If you're in a small town, I think you need to know your demographics, but also I think you need to know your psychographics. So often in small towns, people come home at night, watch TV, eat, go to bed, get up and do the same thing the next day. And so the question is, how do we reach those people? Come home at night, eat, do the same thing, go to bed, get up and do it all over again. They're hurting just as much as the people in the big city. They need Jesus Christ. And it's very important that we kind of understand it. Where can they be reached? What kind of media? What kind of sources can I use? You can get a lot of free media. We had a General Superintendent V.H. Lewis who said, if I were pastoring again, I would put an ad in the movie section of the newspaper which said, call us at Church of the Nazarene at this number. We can help your teenagers. I never thought about that, but you may not think that's very good, but for General Superintendent to say it, you got to think it's God's Word. I thought it was pretty neat. I'm sorry. What are their interests? Soccer's big right now. At least where I live, it's big. I'm thinking about going back and coaching a Y soccer team. I used to coach soccer. Why not? People. I told Patsy, I said, I want to get out of my holy huddle and get out where sinners are. You know, just where people are. People. And they're hurting everywhere. Everywhere. Relationship evangelism, we talked about that. Circle of friends, I think Stan's got something here. I've used it too. You make friends with people and you have this circle of friends. You invite them to your house. You do things with them. And you open the door of invitation, and eventually you're able to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I call it the family circle. Same principle. If you get one of those people in the family circle saved, usually the family circle will expand. You get more saved. In one area where we were, a fireman got saved. He had a bunch of firemen working for him. A bunch of them got saved, and so he began to expand the family circle. But you pray for these people. You become friends with them. There's nothing wrong with becoming friends with sinners. Again, I want to go back. That's what Jesus said, become friends with sinners. Stan uses a little ABC pen. He also, in his special stuff, and we've done it in the middle of the service, he gives an invitation, has a card for them to fill out, have them stand, and then the follow-up comes after that. Does a good job with that. He's probably better at it than I would be. I'm still more altar prone, which is probably a weakness I have, but I'm just altar prone. I do the other, but I'm altar prone. That's just me, okay? But everybody's personality is different. And that's not saying he's wrong or I'm wrong. I'm just saying that. But we try to build friends. We want to build friends. We want to make friends with people. If you have been in the church 7 years, you probably don't have any or many unchurched friends. 7 years. 7 years. And then their circle of friends becomes church people. So you have to intentionally develop. You have to intentionally develop a circle of friends outside the church. Our pastor, Rick Harvey, is marvelous at this. That guy eats breakfast, dinner, lunch with somebody different all the time. Sunday morning he baptized a guy that married a gal out of our church and just began playing golf with him. The guy came to Jesus Christ. Rick baptized him. 18 months later, he baptizes him. But it all started because Rick started playing golf with him. I go to basketball games. I sat at a basketball game with a guy whose son coached one of the colleges out in Oklahoma City and just became friends with him. That's what it's all about. It's about letting people see Jesus. Flying in on the plane, a lady whose name was Pam, African American, we began to share. She had out of Grenada. They attend Union Baptist Church. But find out about people. On plane's a great place to find out. They can't run from you. Now, the next lady I sat by, she was going to Richmond area. She had an Obama.com shirt on, so we didn't talk politics, I can tell you. But we had a good talk. We had a good talk. You don't have to be offensive. But man, they got to know Jesus, folks. And if you and I don't tell them, they may never know. Event evangelism. There's been a move away from special events. Doug, did you guys, when you Hutch? I did the interim before he got to Hutch. That's why I had such a successful ministry up there. Just kidding. No. Did you guys still do event evangelism at Hutch? Yeah. And you usually attracted huge crowds, didn't you? Did you do the Festival of Lights deal? Yeah, that attracted how many people? 4,500 people. And some people got saved, came to church. Yeah. See, events, advertise them, talk about them, event evangelism. People are less likely to be suspicious or to put up a wall if they're going to an event where they don't think some preacher's going to be pounding on. Event evangelism. I knew your festival, was it called Festival of Lights? Season Lights, yeah, I knew it was a big deal. But that's very important that you find any kind of event that you can do to invite unsaved people, to invite it. Easter Sunday morning is a good time to have an event. What? Advertise free breakfast for anybody that comes. Hello? I went to Duncan, Oklahoma to work with them. Church had gone into some problems. They needed a crowd quickly. I said, why don't we put an ad in the paper and just say, anybody wants to come and join us for breakfast and stay for worship. They were running about 50. We had 130 that day. And we fed a lot of people breakfast, and they stayed for church. He said, yeah, it does happen. That's the one day they might come to church, and they might come even more if you give them a free breakfast. Anything you can use to get Jesus to people is well worth it. I started preaching a little bit. I do preach too. Deeds evangelism out in the community. Running a marathon in Oklahoma City. Be there with the church's name on the bottle of water, passing out water to everybody. Nothing wrong with that. I noticed that you guys have won a lot of trophies at the Breathitt Honey Parade. I'm sure you've got people out there doing all kinds of stuff during the time while that's going on. Giving out water. Yeah, just all kinds of stuff. Little things. Media evangelism, probably that works sometimes, it doesn't work, but it is a vehicle that works. I will tell you this, I was on television. I preached on television, worst experience of my life. Every time you hitched your pants or did your glasses, and sometimes I felt like God couldn't bless us if He wanted us to, because our tradition is that, we're free with the Spirit. Well, that thing just bound us up so much I couldn't stand it. But one Sunday morning, even on television, God broke in. Wasn't going to be preaching that day. Kids started testifying. People started coming to the altar. And I said, don't cut it off. Let it go. You would be surprised at the response we got from Oklahoma City. Boy, that was a great... We saw you on television. I was shocked. But you know what? Of course, eventually we got rid of the television program because it cost so much we couldn't do it. But I'm just saying, there's things you can do. Worship evangelism, of course, is just basically preaching. Bob Jeffries is the pastor of Dallas First Baptist Church. He's a very interesting, charismatic figure there in the city of Dallas. And we were there on our anniversary because Jim Cymbala was there at the Brooklyn Tab. Patsy and I had the privilege of having a private audience with Jim Cymbala about 5 years ago in his office. We went up to Brooklyn Tab to see their prayer ministry. On Tuesday night, you cannot get a seat. You don't get there early for their prayer meeting. You can't get a seat. And man, they pray. I'm telling you folks, they pray. Also, they have prayer groups, a prayer deal going on, and they're praying around the clock with cards and requests that have come in. I think that's very important that we begin to think in that way of what's happening. And I just lost my train of thought, which says that probably I need to get it back. Catch that train, somebody bring it back to me. Yeah, First Baptist Church, Bob Jeffries. One thing I like about Bob, it makes no difference what sermon he preaches, there's always a public invitation. Public invitation. And Jim Cymbala was there, and Jim preached a simple message on 1 Corinthians 13, talked about kindness and love. Didn't give an invitation. Oh, Bob got right up behind him, gave an invitation. And they came down. First Baptist Dallas, they go to the altar. Started with W.A. Criswell. They go to the altar there, folks. They go to the altar. I'm big on the altar, you can tell. Church planting is another way. You establish your church plant, and then that church plant is able eventually to establish people, bring people in. Sometimes people will come to a newer church than they will to a church that's already established. Have you found that out, Gary? You found that out? Have you found out people will come to a newer church than was? I think that's true. Have you found that out, Doug? Yeah, I think so. I don't know why it is, but they do. It's just the way it goes. Okay. Discipleship. Okay, my time is up. I'll wrap it up tomorrow morning. And thanks for listening. You've been so good. Thanks for listening. Let's do 2 more of these real quickly, and we'll let Doc have it. I guess what I'm trying to say to you, every opportunity to tell people about Jesus, take it, whatever it is. Did you still have your counseling ministry up there with one of my students? What's his name? Yeah, he's one of my students. Yeah. How about your compassionate ministry deal? Was Gary still compassionate ministry? I'll just say this in front of him. Hutch is probably one of the most well-rounded churches I've ever had. A great staff, but they had the laymen were so well trained in that church. Man, they just did their jobs. That church had been 10 miles from Oklahoma City. I probably would have pastored and you couldn't have been there. But the laymen were so well trained. In Grove City, Wayne Sharps came in there. Kind of Dale Galloway found it. Wayne came in there and trained those laymen, and man, they were trained. They did their job. They still do it. So training laymen is important. Thanks so much, people. Doc, it's yours.